everybody. Um, Welcome to the Pennsylvania headquarters, where I've been holed up for a while. Um, there, I'm offering this video missive as a way of doing a couple of things, which I will elaborate upon in a moment. But before I even get there, I've got to apologize. Um, I am deeply frustrated and embarrassed by the car troubles I've had the last couple of weeks. And it's the last thing I expected, certainly the last thing you expected. I'm deeply sorry, and my hope is that what I'm offering you here will help us get back on track, get us back to the work we need to do. And with that in mind, let me tell you what it is I want to do with atmospheric disturbances. First of all, the overarching goal of what will no doubt be a couple of shortish installments here will be to put this novel behind us, to shut down the conversation, not shut it down, but to conclude it in a profitable way, and then be ready to talk about Bernhard's Concrete on Monday and start dealing with the second, middle part of this term's reading list. And to do that, I am prepared to talk about two subjects. One is structural, and the other is point of view. The structural element goes as follows. What I want to do is provide a reading of this novel that will allow us to not exhaust every possibility, but to bring our discussion to a point at which the novel's plot we can see, if in hindsight, as a sort of allegorical operation, secular allegorical operation, and second, to bring at least a sense of how a couple of the threads that we've been entertaining are brought together by way of the end of this narrative. As I talk, I'm going to ask you to keep in mind both of the Hawthorne readings that we did at the beginning of the term. Young Goodman Brown, also, of course, a secular allegory, right, or a modern allegory, in the sense that its structural trappings are parabolic. It invites into the text the possibility of a supernatural reading, but never allows us to entertain that at the expense of the narrative's operations being a matter of Brown's perspective, right, a sort of failed perspective. And then in Wakefield, which will be mostly relevant to the second part of this discussion, one-sided discussion. Wakefield is I hesitate to put it this way because I think I don't want to preclude other ways of thinking about it. But one way of thinking about it accurately, if not completely, is an exercise in the most radical kind of unreliable narrator. That the convention of unreliability has it that the reader is put in a position to try to read through the presented text to reach the untold story. In Wakefield's case, there is no untold story. That we're sort of suspended over a void, and the content of the story is not a misperception of actual events, but a barely remembered summary of something that appeared in a newspaper or a magazine. So with those two, I want you to hold those two things in mind as I go along, although there'll obviously be times in which one is more relevant than the other. Regarding atmospheric disturbances in this reading I want to perform or summarize, I asked you as we were breaking up a couple of weeks ago to rethink or think more deeply about the nature of love as it operates in this text, and what we were on the verge, I think, of producing a really sort of hard, cynical attitude toward Leo's experience of Rima. Now, this is justified to a very large extent. Certainly, Leo's, as we've discussed, Leo's experience of love is dependent entirely on Rima's externalities, her idiosyncrasies, her behaviors, her appearance, and so forth. At the expense of a true intimacy, which requires as a first step the recognition that this person this beloved is a person in an entirety who is different from you and is not simply something put on earth to please you. Okay, so there's the justified part, but the I want to open that up a little bit, and I'm going to refer to the German psychologist and philosopher I referred to some weeks ago, Erich Fromm, who would describe what Leo is experiencing as an immature love, right? Effectively, a crush or an infatuation, and he would also point out that there is such a thing as a mature love, and a mature love is an experience of true intimacy, which Leo is bereft of. Well, let me talk about immature love for a moment, or crush or infatuation. How it operates really entirely on externalities, right? On what is perceived in somebody, speculated about, right? On the basis of externalities, appearances, behaviors, various kinds of eccentricities or idiosyncrasies. And what Fromm says about that experience, the experience of falling in love, right, of having a crush, is that it is predicated on a speculation that the perceiver may not even be aware of, namely that this person appears to me to be somebody who will complete me, and they are experienced with varying degrees of intensity, but most intensely and taken most seriously by someone who is, as Leo is, A, lonely, and B, bereft of a kind of model of intimate love, right, or mature love. So what Leo, if we take what I just described to heart, then what we have is a case in which Leo is, in his memory of the Hungarian pastry shop, etc., is falling in love, or experiencing a falling in love that is predicated on his perception of Rima's externalities, precisely as we described, and made more intense and serious by his loneliness and his inexperience with true intimacy. And we need to look no farther than what he reports about his parents in order to have a sense of what that loneliness and that experience of being bereft of true intimacy is about, right? Where it comes from, and what it's based on. It's important, I think, that that we treat what he calls love with at least a degree of seriousness. Not that we have to agree with it, and certainly, again, the novel holds out for the purposes of our awareness, the kind of incomplete or immature nature of his love, that we need to be, sort of aware of him as a person who's failed at love, also. But I think we need to take his experience of falling in love seriously for the following reasons. Number one is, as I also mentioned as we were breaking up a couple of weeks ago, that photograph, I want you to put real stock in the photograph of the Galchen family on Leo and Rima's refrigerator as it appears on page 26, and the language that surrounds it, that it served as a kind of beacon for Leo and for Rima and for their relationship together for a time, because it represented the feeling of family happiness. Now, this would be a feeling that Leo has not had before, but one that he seems to one that he values, one that he in fact wants. This is important if for no other reason than the novel structure is dependent upon this desire. He pursues, I will not rehash the plot, but as we know, he goes off in search of the Rima he believes is missing, and I want to look at how this concludes, and I want to jump a couple hundred pages down the road, and look at pages 226 and 227 for a moment in which the plot of the novel is brought to a close. I'm going to pause here because I need to keep a limit on time. This will come in a series of installments. Installment number 2, structure and allegory in atmospheric disturbances. Hang on.